Hello, I'm Heather,
And I'm Ryan,
and this is the Politics Free Podcast,
where you can come for a short time each week to get away from the madness of the world,
while we carry on as though nothing important or noteworthy is happening.
So join us for some conversation,
Some silliness,
and a game,
while we attempt to put you in a better mood by the end of the episode than you're in right now.
Welcome to our bubble.
Welcome to our bubble. Hey.
Hello.
Okay, so there's nobody listening yet. So if you look at these three little dots on the side there, like up where it says live, and then you hit those three dots, it'll say show activity. You'll be able to see.
Right.
And then you'll be able to see everyone who's listening, I guess. I'm not sure where the messages show up. I'm going to save all of my brilliant conversation for when I actually see a number arrive here that somebody might actually be listening.
Right.
Which is going to make, it's going to make for some blank space, I guess, in the podcast. Oh, you know what? Whatever. Let's just do the episode. We'll do the episode. If nobody listens, it's still a podcast episode that we can hopefully put on our podcast, right?
Right.
Okay, so this is the Politics Free Podcast. I'm Heather.
And I'm Ryan.
And we just want to clarify first off that politics free means with no politics. A lot of people do understand that. Some people don't, but we're super not political. We really try not to get into that sort of topic. The topic of today's show is going to be life lessons. So I think, as we go along in life and as you get older and older, you learn. Certain things happen. Sometimes life punches you straight in the face with a lesson that you've got to learn. And so I wanted to, we're going to talk about some of the things that we've learned. Hopefully, Ryan, you'll be able to remember some stuff as I go through my outline list of everything that I've written down here. Also, there's going to be tangents, right? Is it weird looking at my avatar doing this?
Oh, you see your own avatar? I see your avatar.
No, I see your avatar, but you see mine, right?
Yes.
Well, great. This is kind of weird not looking at you, but looking at an avatar. All right. So one of the first lessons that I learned in life, I'm going to tell you the story of this, bro.
Okay.
I must have been about 5 years old, and we were in a mall. And they had set up all these tables like in sort of one of the sort of more open areas. And there was a contest going on for all the kids. And the contest was, I swear, I feel like I'm remembering this maybe a little incorrectly, because my memory is they had all this cookie dough, and you had to take the cookie dough. You do remember. Okay, you have to mold it into a teddy bear, right? Okay.
Yes.
So I did mine. I was super proud of it. It was fantastic. My teddy bear, here it is. It looked like an unidentifiable blob in my memory, like looking back at it.
Mm.
And so we all put our teddy bears along the table, and the judges came and they announced the winner, and it was this fantastic looking cookie dough teddy bear. And that person won, and I burst out crying. And Mom and Dad, I can't even remember who was there with us, was trying to like console me. It's, honey, sometimes you lose sometimes. That's just what happens. And I remember I was not actually upset that I lost. That was not the upset, because and this is going to seem like I'm going off topic here, but bear with me. You know how when you're a kid, you're like, I'll race you, right? And then everyone runs and you race. We've done that a million times as kids, right?
For sure.
As a sluggishly slow runner, I've lost every running race ever. Up until that point in time, I had lost every running race ever. I was very familiar with losing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was not the losing that stung. It was the realization in that moment that I sucked. My teddy bear sucked. There was somebody that was better than me at something. And that's kind of a lesson that you learn repeatedly throughout life, which is you're going to meet people that are better than you at things, that are so much better, that their natural talent is so much better than all your hard work and effort that you've put into it. And you're just never going to be as good, right? And we can think that sucks or something, and maybe it does in the moment, but that doesn't mean that you can't always keep improving yourself and get to where you're happy with your own ability, right?
Right.
I never decided to pursue cookie dough modeling after that point in time. So I'm not sure. Oh, go on.
I just wanted to add to the story because I believe I was about 3 years old when this happened. So I have some recollection of this. And I remember your cookie, you had cut out the shape of a teddy bear in a flat 2-dimensional shape. And the winning teddy bear was molded out of cookie dough. And I remember it was like this little blonde girl had made it, and it was like a really good sculpture of
it was fantastically good. It was fantastically good.
Heather.
Yes.
If it's
her mom did it for her.
Maybe, but doubtful. But if it's any consolation, you try baking that cookie and you see what kind of mess you come up with. You bake your cookie, Heather. Guess who's still going to look like a teddy bear? Yours is, not hers. Hers is going to be a pile of crap just melted into a blob that will be unrecognizable as anything. So
I feel so much better about that whole thing now. I've been so hung up on this incident. No, I haven't really. I haven't. I learned,
Yeah.
And then fast forwarding, I guess another life lesson that I learned, and this is something I guess that I learned about myself, that I didn't know before this point in time. And I've never been, by the way, in a situation again like this situation to know if this is how I would still react. But I told you the story, I think even recently, but it was the dog that would terrorize the neighborhood. Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it would. So, I mean, just for the benefit of anybody that hasn't heard the story that would like to, there was a dog that terrorized the neighborhood where we lived as kids. And for whatever reason, the owners would leave their gate open all the time and just be like, sure, let this dog attack whoever on the street. We don't care. And it would attack everyone and everything. It would run after you barking, right? So this one day, and like, okay, if you were a kid, he's like 5, 6 years old, right? Short, tiny, scared of the dog. If you approached this gate and it was open, you just didn't pass the gate. You went around the block the other way, wherever you were going, right? And that had been my typical solution to the problem of this dog. Well, this one day, my friends came over. Everybody had a bike except for this one kid. And we were going to go over to my other friend's house from our house. So I told him he could use my bike because I'm kind and wonderful. And I never toot my own horn. So they were all on the bikes and they were like, never. They were like, okay, we will go really slow, Heather, so you can keep up so you don't have to run. Because they were really nice and kind. Yes. Until we got to the gate where the dog was. And the gate was open and I looked down, I peered around the corner and the dog was all the way at the bottom of the driveway and there was people. So we thought, hey, he's distracted. Just walk, go past quickly. Don't make eye contact. So as we're going past quickly, not making eye contact, the dog comes running after us and all of my quote unquote friends took off on their bikes. And it was like, this is probably where they got the band name from Reality Bites. Cause I screamed at the one kid, hey, that's my bike. Like he's just taking off with my bike, ditching me to my death by dog. And I really thought in my tiny little child's frame of mind at that point in time, I was like, I'm dying right now. I'm going to die. This dog is going to catch up with me. It's gonna attack me and eat me, and my life is over. I'm gonna miss you, Mom and Dad. Ryan, you were kind of okay. I'm sorry for anything bad I've done. And as I was running away and the dog was gaining on me, because as we mentioned a little earlier, I cannot run quickly. So I knew I was going to die, right?
Right.
This dog is about to catch up with me. And I just decided, okay, well, I might as well die, not like a complete coward running away and screaming. So I turned around and I planted my feet and I just roared at the top of my lungs. And the dog got terrified, stuck its little tail between its little tiny toy poodle legs, and ran off back down the driveway. Huh. And that lesson taught me, hey, if I have a problem, maybe I should face it head on instead of avoiding it, because apparently when you do that, the problem resolves. Different circumstances for different things, but that I think for the most part is true. It's how you solve a problem. You have to face the problem, fight or flight. Fight can sometimes turn out better. Flight maybe can also turn out better. Like if a tiger is literally running at you, trying to fight it is not a good idea. Run and get in your car and lock the door. Like that seems like flight works better in that situation. But
what if your car's nowhere nearby?
Well, don't climb a tree because it's a tiger. He's going to get you. Wait a minute. I just realized the solution is tigers are basically extinct in the wild, right? This is what we learned from Tiger King. So no problem. The tiger is imaginary anyway. I can climb a tree. I'll be fine.
So this has actually made me remember two stories.
Okay.
Not necessarily life lessons, if you will, but there was something that I took away from both of them.
Okay, well, it's fine because we did say we were going to go on tangents, so feel free.
Yeah. So back when I was 18 and I had first gotten my license, me and about 3 of my other friends decided we were going to drive into town and go see a movie. So we all load up in my car and we're pulling out. So if you remember, like we were still like our house was like still in a new construction area. So, we had the gravel road going out there and there was like empty lots and people's yards were still dirt, still dirt and mud. And so it was like the middle of fall and it was dark out. And I'm pulling out of the driveway and somehow I got myself into somebody's yard and the car got stuck. So we're sitting there trying really hard to get this car out of our neighbor's yard. And one of my friends is like, well, let's just take my car, leave your car here. And then, we'll go see the movie, I'm like, dude, I can't leave my car in somebody's yard for
priorities.
Hours.
The priorities of a teenage boy.
And so he's like, well, dude, we're wasting a lot of time and we're going to miss the movie. So I'm going with or without you. So if anybody wants to come with me, you're welcome to come. So one of our other friends was like, yeah, okay, see you later, Ryan. Peace out. And so they get in, this guy's car and leave. So it's just me and this other kid. And so I was like, well, what do we do now? And he's like, I don't know, but I'm going to get my dad and he's going to pull you out of here and we're going to go buy some eggs and egg his car. So, I'm like, all right, cool. So we like walk over to his house. His dad pulls his truck around and pulls us out of the yard. And, we drive down to, we end up picking up another buddy of ours and we told him what we were doing. He thought it was hilarious. So, we drive down to the little market, that little corner market. And we go in there to go buy a dozen of eggs. And, here's 3 teenage boys on a Friday night walking up to go buy some eggs. And the cashier goes, can I see your ID? And I said, to buy some eggs? And she's like, well, it is Friday night and your teenage boys probably up to no good. And I said, I'm taking these home to go bake a cake. And so she starts laughing. She's like, well, city ordinance, I still got to card you. So I was like, whatever. So I give her my license. I'm 18 years old. I had to be 18 years old to buy some eggs. So I'm like, whatever. So we buy the eggs and we leave. And I'm like, bake a cake, So we drive, the next town over to the movie theater, and we pull up right next to their car, and we just egg his car, right? And we're standing there, just sitting looking at our handiwork, and I'm like, he's gonna know this was us. We're parked right next to him, and he goes, "Yeah, that's true. He is." And so we start egging my car. So we go in and we catch our movie, and we go watch our movie. By the time we get out, him and our other buddy are gone, and so we drive off and we go wash the car, and we get home. And by the time we get home, it's 10 p.m. And so this was one of our buddy that lived in the upstairs apartment, like in our triplex. And so he comes downstairs. He's like, "Hey, did you see that somebody egged our cars?" And I was like, "Yeah. Well, I definitely saw my car was egged. I thought you did that." And he goes, "Why would I egg your car?" I was like, "I don't know. You ditched me so you could go see your movie. I figured you were the one that egged the car," and totally turned it around on him. It's like,
oh man,
I would never.
Good times.
It was just so convenient. But yeah, there was that with the car. And then I had remembered another story.
Well, while you're thinking about that, let me switch back to our topic. Switch back to our topic of life lessons.
Yes. I remember my life lesson.
Okay, go ahead, because I wrote mine down so I won't forget. You go for it.
Okay. So this actually happened a couple years ago. But so I've, a little history about me, obviously, is that obvious for you. But so I have been in my trade for about 15 years, right? As a welder, metal fabricator. And that's, what I've done for about 15 years. And I was a journeyman welder fabricator for about 12 of those years. And I just got into this apprenticeship, to further my education and actually become better at what I do. And so I'm in my first year of this apprenticeship, and I'm working on this job site. And so I have an advantage out of most apprentices that come into this apprenticeship, because I already have years of experience under my belt, and I already have that journeyman mentality. So I'm always kind of, I know what I know, and I'm willing to learn, but it makes it easier to teach me because I already have, a lot of knowledge under my belt. So we come in early one morning before, we do stretch and flex on job sites, like how Japan kind of does it. It's starting to pick up here in the US to do stuff like that.
Okay.
So we show up, and our foreman comes up to us, and he's all frantic. He's like, "Oh, there was a delivery coming in today. We have to do a crane lift and get all this duct work up to the 13th floor." He's like, "I need you up there right now to make sure our staging area is clear. Yada yada. Here's a radio. Go up there and get it clear. Make sure it's clear." So I was like, "All right." So I run upstairs, and this thing's gonna happen in 5 minutes. Our truck had just pulled up, and the crane time is gold. They do not F around. And if you're tying up crane time, you're pissing off the crane operator, and you're pissing off a lot of people that matter, So I get upstairs, and our area has a bunch of rebar in it. And so they're the guys that are setting all the rebar for the concrete pour, and their foreman happened to be up on that floor at the time. So I run up to him, and I was like, "Hey man, is there any chance you and your guys could move your stuff out of our staging area real quick? We got a delivery coming, and I got to make sure our area is clear." And he's like, "Well, how come nobody told me about this before? And I was like, dude, like, I'm surprised by it. We didn't even know this was happening until just now. And he's like, well, I need a whole lot more than 5 minutes to know when to, get rid of our stuff out of your area. And so I was like, you know what? It's totally cool. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. So naturally, in my Ryan self, I walk over to their material and I just start picking it up and chucking it to the side. And I'm just sitting there throwing it across the room out of our area. And it was it's all like scrap rebar, stuff that I already knew was trash. And even if it wasn't, I wasn't worried about damaging rebar, And so the guy starts freaking out. Whoa, 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 whoa. What the hell are you doing? What the hell is wrong with you? And I said, hey, man, I asked you nicely to get rid of your shit. I'll take care of it. I don't care. I'm going to do it my way. I got 5 minutes to have it out of here. And he's like, well, Jesus Christ. He's like, we'll take care of it. Fuck, So him and his two guys, like, get rid of all the stuff. And so this guy, like, ends up, like, shoulder checking me, right? And he's like, God, you're such a douchebag. And so I was like, like, I didn't even apologize. I was just like, and I was with a journeyman, right? This girl. Mm-hmm. And she's just standing back, her jaw dropped. And she, like, has no idea what to do. And she was like, wow, Ryan, you were way out of line. I was like, I don't give a fuck, And so, so we're up there. We get all our material staged. And I go back downstairs. And so I go up to my foreman. I'm like, hey, so you should probably know. And I told him the story. And he starts laughing. And he was like, don't worry about it. If he comes and bitches to me, I got your back. And so I was like, okay, cool. So we go down a stretch and flex. And here comes the rebar foreman, like, walking towards, like, our whole crew's together. And I was like, oh, fuck, here we go, right? And he comes up to me. He's like, hey, man. I'm like, what's up? And he, like, knucks me, right? Gives me the knucks. We, like, fist pound. And then he was like, good job this morning. And then he, like, walks off. And I was just, like, kind of taken aback by that for a moment. And I was like, what the hell just happened? And it, like, made me realize, like, something about, like, construction workers is we kind of have this, like, we could get, like, mad at each other and, like, come almost to, like, a physical altercation, and then, like, 5 minutes later we've just completely forgotten what happened and we're totally cool with each other, and I don't know, I just thought it was an interesting experience. It wasn't like anything life-changing, but it was just something that made me, like, kind of think about how I interact with people and stuff, just in general on the job sites. And I actually, toned it down because I realized when I reflected on it, it's like, I realized I was out of line,
Yeah.
But at the same time, the guy got the point and understood that, like, his stuff needed to move, and he got on it because he obviously didn't want me to do it the way that I was doing it. But, whatever.
No, I mean, that's a life lesson. That's definitely a life lesson because that's happened to me. I can't think of any, like, I have a vague memory of a similar situation. So I'm not going to try to tell the story, but just in general, it's like sometimes you're expecting a certain reaction from somebody, and then you happily get a totally different reaction. And you're like, oh, and it makes you reflect on your own behavior, and you go, and it makes you want to be the same way, it makes you want to also be forgiving or calm or patient. And that's always a life lesson. You can learn from other people, certainly. The next life lesson that I have on my life lesson list of life lessons I remembered is this. Oh my God, just always read a contract before you sign it.
Yeah.
I wrote down always sign a contract, but read the contract before you sign it, because, okay, so I'll tell you this. So it was a summer camp, and it was a 6-week program. And the deal was you worked the summer and you got the paycheck at the very end of summer. And I just graduated high school. This was my first year out of high school.
Yeah.
So I did the 6 weeks. I go in to get my paycheck for the 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And it was about $45 total.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the hell? I burst into the HR office. I was like, what is this? This is a check I worked 6 weeks for $45. She's like, well, yeah, that's in the contract that you signed. was like, what? She's like, yeah, because typically, I guess the staff that come bring their kids, and because the camp costs a couple grand or whatever, their kids go there for free and they get just a small whatever check at the end, right? Because they work there with the understanding that they don't have to pay for the kids to go. Now, so she explained that to me, and I was like, well, I don't have kids. She was like, well, you signed the contract. And I was like, oh my God, never again. Like, it was the stupidest way, but but also good, because now in much more important circumstances, I'm a lot more careful about making sure I understand and read a contract. And I actually was going to take a job. And when I read the contract, essentially there was a little clause in there that was like, essentially would have penalized me financially if for somebody else's falling down on the job, like the way it was worded in there. And I was like, nope, I'm not down with that. Sorry, not taking this dumb job. And, it's one of those lessons. You don't think about it. And then that's one of those, it just slaps you in the face. Like, I couldn't believe it too. It was people I completely trusted. I thought it, and I to this day find that incredibly dishonest. That they wouldn't mention that to me up front.
I feel like, because obviously I know where you're talking about, that
right.
They even thought that was ethical, per se, because obviously you don't have any children that are going to this summer camp. So they should have paid you. And the fact that they do that to parents that bring their kids to the program is kind of a little messed up too, because they still need money to live,
Right.
So it just kind of strikes me as odd that they don't pay them some kind of wage. I mean, during the regular year when it's not a summer camp, the faculty there are paid a livable wage while they have their kids there, So I don't understand.
I will say this. Sorry to interrupt you, but I will say this.
No worries.
It's very possible I'm misremembering some details. Like maybe that was after, now that I'm thinking about that, might have been the paycheck after like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But it was still quite small. So, I mean, it was something, but it was definitely not worth 6 weeks of work that I did. So, and that was back in the day where you didn't clock in and clock out. You know what I mean? I don't know what the laws are now surrounding this would be. And it's certainly different state to state. But at that time, we weren't like 8 hours, then you get overtime if you work past that. It's not like the laws are now. So I think it was just kind of, it wasn't an hourly wage. It was just kind of a set wage. But that was the big thing that. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. Yeah, salary. But yeah, always sign a contract. And this kind of dovetails a little bit with my other life lesson that I've got here, which is this isn't like a specific incident that happened, but it's just like a sort of conglomeration, I guess. Is that the word? It's a combination of a bunch of different little things that have happened here and there that have made me really decide that if I have an important document, like a tax document, birth certificate, passport, a very important document, never entrust that to anyone else. Do not. Do not. You keep that stuff somewhere safe, no matter how disorganized you are as a person. Just get one file cabinet. Maybe it locks. Maybe it's a safe. I don't know. And everything that's important that would give you a ton of trouble if you don't have it, it just goes in there and you know where it is, and you don't ever trust it to anybody else.
Right.
Because that is just, I can't even, I don't know why I came up with this. There were a few incidents, but I don't remember specifically what they were. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, I can tell you right now that I have lost my Social Security card multiple times. And it's usually when we're moving. Yes, I don't even know. I don't know. And most of the times was back when I was like 18 and my early 20s. And mom had to take me to the Social Security office and go get a new one. And at one point, during one of my visits, the lady said, "You've already had this replaced X amount of times." And I was like, "Yeah." And she goes, "This is the last time we can replace this for you. Like, we cannot replace this card anymore for you. Do not lose this one."
Wow. Wow.
And so I said, "Okay." And 20 years later, or
her words
17 years later,
impinged.
15 years later, I should say, I managed to lose it again.
You've lost your social. What?
Heather, I don't
Ryan.
even know. Heather, I don't know how. I have a special location for all of our important documents, such as birth certificates, wedding certificates, social security cards. I have that shit locked down in a safe place, and I only ever pull out those social security cards once a year to do my taxes. And last year, the year before last, I pulled them out to do taxes, and I somehow managed to lose 3 out of 4 social security cards, and I cannot find them for the life of me. Heather, I have
Did you report that? You got to report it. You're gonna.
Yes,
if you don't know where they are, because then otherwise there's identity theft that happens. Mike has had, my husband, a massive identity theft problem years ago, where he actually had to change his social security number to a new one because somebody stole his identity and his social security number. Yeah. Now, luckily, the person that stole it had like a criminal record and was using his name. Yeah. And he actually got stopped in an airport because they thought, because it was his name and he was coming through with his own identity, but this criminal had stolen it. And luckily they didn't hold him long because he like 100% did not match the description of the guy who was like short and had a pot belly and was balding. And like, that's the exact opposite of everything. Mike's tall. He's got his hair. He does well. I mean, he's got a little bit of a belly now, but I wouldn't call it a pot belly. And he certainly didn't have one then. So, but yeah, I can't even believe I've never lost my social security card ever. I still have my original one with my maiden name and I have my married one.
But I will say that apparently I can still get it replaced yet again. But I don't know how, and I'm pretty sure it somehow ended up in the garbage. I don't know how, but I'm fairly confident that no one's going rooting through the dump looking for things, because the dump here is actually pretty secure. It would be kind of hard for anybody to go in there and do that. And we don't usually get people going through our dumpster. So I'm not worried about it. But at the same time, it's like I have a knack for losing stuff that shouldn't be lost, or losing stuff that should be super hard to lose. For example, in Costco, I can manage to lose my receipt between checking out with the cashier and then trying to leave the store. I don't know how it happens. I've done it multiple times. But
and then there was that time you lost remember the money order for the rent? That whole thing.
Yes. That was, oh God, have that. I went, so like, here's a life lesson that I learned. I used to play games with my rent. When I first started living on my own, I was 20 years old. I hadn't quite turned 21 yet, but I had like a little studio apartment, and I would pay for my rent with a personal check. I would write the check out like a normal person, and I would turn it in, and I would go on about my life. And so, there was a couple times where like, I started learning, okay, it takes about 2 weeks for my check to clear. So I've got 2 weeks where I could, like, if I'm in a tight spot, like, just borrow a little money from that rent that'll be going through in 2 weeks. And by the time I get paid this Friday, like, everything will be peachy keen. Like, no one will know. And so there had been multiple times where I tried playing that game, and for whatever reason, life was like, hey, guess what? We're going to withdraw that money early, and boom, my check bounces. And then the apartment complex says to me, hey, this is the third time this has happened. One more time and we're evicting you. So I was like, crap, what am I going to do?
Wow.
And so I was like, okay, here's my way around it. I'll buy a money order. That way the money leaves my account right away. And then I will give them the money order. And then I don't have to worry about bouncing checks anymore. So that is how I've paid my rent for the last 17 years, is just paying it with money orders. That way it's out of the account. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to worry about personal checks, all that jazz. And it's kind of a weird way of doing it. I feel like I'm in a minority of people, but it's just something that, has worked for me to keep me out of trouble financially. And
Sure.
so this one time in particular, I stopped by Fred Meyer and I made my money order like I normally do. And, I went home and totally forgot to drop off the check like I normally would. I would usually go right to the manager's office, which is a different location than where we actually live. And I would drop it off and then come home. And so anyway, the only thing that was different with this instance is I had my oldest with me at the time, and she was, I think she was probably about 8 or 9, maybe 10 years old. And so she was, doing like child things and kind of distracting me. And we get to the car and we leave. And, we were planning on going to the movies that night. So, we stopped at Walmart to go pick up some candy that we were going to smuggle in and get home. We go to the movies and, a few days goes by and I'm sitting there at the computer and it suddenly dawns on me. And I was like, did I make rent? I was like, I definitely remember buying the money order, but did I turn it in? I'm sitting there thinking about it. I was like, I didn't turn in rent. And so then I'm like hunting, like I go to the movie theater because I remember distinctly putting it in my pocket. I did not change my pants, but I looked in all my pants. I went to the movie theater and I was looking around and they had no recollect, or none of them had seen it there. And so anyway, it was a whole big thing. So I end up, I have to file a police report. Oh, what happened was I had to call Western Union and they say that it's been cashed. So,
oh, okay. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So someone had found it and cashed it. So I was like, crap. Okay. Well, so then I had to file a police report. And then I had this detective, call me and getting all kinds of asking all kinds of questions and stuff like that. And so he was investigating it. And so in the meantime, I had gotten a copy of it from Western Union and I had noticed that it had gotten cashed at Chase Bank. So I went to Chase Bank and was like, hey, I lost this money order and it was blank and somebody found it, filled it out and cashed it at Chase Bank. Is there any way of finding out like who cashed it? Like if he used his real name or whatever? And he's like, well, I can't really give you that information. I was like, no, I understand that. But like, just looking at the check, can you tell me what location it was cashed at? And he goes, oh yeah. And so he looks at it and he's like, oh, this was cashed at such and such location. I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, well, could they have used like a fake name to cash this? He said, oh no. He's like, anybody who cashes anything here has to use their real name. They have to have an account with us in order to cash any kind of a check. And so I was like, that just made this easier for the detective. So I passed on that information to him, and he's like, oh, okay, great. So he's like, he went to the bank and got the security footage and was able to track this guy down. And apparently the guy was living in a halfway house for drug addicts and was working at Walmart at the time. And so while we were there, he had found it in the aisle and he actually took it to his manager. It's funny because the detective told me when they went to go pick him up at this halfway house, the manager comes out, they're like, hey, is so-and-so here? And the manager goes, is this about that money order? And the cop's like, God. The cop was like, well, I can't really tell you what it's about, but, this is what he was telling me. And so I guess this guy had talked to the manager and said like, yeah, I found this check for $1,000 and, like, I don't know what I should do, if I should cash it or if I should, and so his manager advised him to, turn it in. And so he's talking to his friend, and his friend's like, well, let me check with my dad, see what my dad says. And his dad says, oh, those things are as good as cash. Like, there's no way to trace that down. So whoever lost it, they're shit out of luck. Just, cash it, because, they can't trace it back to you. And so, of course, they traced it back to him. So he ended up, but I will say that he used the money. He gave a portion of it to his friend, who they never were able to track down. But he used it to pay for his rent and catch up on some bills that he had at the halfway house. So I wasn't like entirely mad at this guy, because he didn't use it on anything stupid.
Right.
But at the same time, I was pissed that, he like stole my money. And so he ended up doing an adult deferral program, which is like, instead of getting a felony charge, he had basically a year to go through some kind of a program and to pay me back. Otherwise, he would be hit with the felony charge and go to prison or jail or whatever it is they sent him. Because it was
okay.
Yeah, because it was over $700, and theft over $700 is actually a felony offense. So
I did not know that.
Yeah, at least in our area. So
sure.
It was $1,000. He would have, been hit with a felony, but he ended up paying us back over the course of the year. And,
okay, good for him.
Yeah,
sounds like he learned a life lesson.
Yes, absolutely.
He definitely did. I can't tell if we have a message. I was going to mention this at the beginning when we first started, but like, this is our first time using the stereo app, and I'm trying to figure it out. If I hit this button, I'm either going to follow this guy that followed me, or it's going to be a message. Ready? Oh no, that's just me being able to invite him to this. I don't understand. I've gotten confused. Okay, abort from technology. I can't figure it out. Okay.
One following. Oh, you're following me.
I'm following you.
Yeah, I was like, I have one follower already. It's you. Aw.
It's you. I know. We're each other's followers. That is, okay, I just have to tell you this story. So, you remember this YouTuber I told you that I was like, hey, will you come be on our dinky little podcast, even though it's of no benefit to you? And I emailed her. So in the email, I was like, even if you say no, I'm still going to be a fan anyway. I don't care. So I watched a video from her today on YouTube, and the video was all about like words that she hates. One of them was follower, which reminded me of it, because she doesn't like how social media people will ask her, how many followers do you have? She's like, no, they're not followers. They're individual people. Like, they're not lambs, right? She said, and so therefore the other word I hate is fan, because she feels like it puts her on a pedestal, and but she feels like she's on a level with people, which I thought was really cool. But it almost made me want to like email her back and be like, hey, BT Dobbs, totally not a fan. Love, Heather. Like, because I was like, oh man, I said I was a fan. She actually read the definition of fan, which I was like, oh, I'm not a fan, because there's a level of obsession, I guess, with a fan of something, that it's not just like admiring and liking it. It's like you go the next level. But I think that's one of those words that's going to maybe change its meaning, because typically it just means like, maybe the dictionary needs to catch up with us on the definition, because I think it just means you like something, you like that thing, you're a fan of it. It doesn't have that same.
I'm looking up the definition right now.
Excellent.
A person who has a strong interest or admiration for a particular person or thing. Football fans.
No, that's not the one she read. What was she reading from? I should have paid attention. Well, oh well. Hers, I don't know. I can't remember what she was reading it from, but it was like, I think the word obsession was in there.
I don't know. Because to me, that doesn't make sense, simply for the fact that I can say that I am a fan of certain things or certain people, or certain movies, but I'm in no way obsessed with them. I just, have an interest, or even I'll go a step further and say an admiration,
Yeah.
For these things. So it's like, it's like saying like, I'm not a fan of spaghetti, or I'm a fan of oranges. It just means that you like them. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like
Yeah.
you're saying you're obsessed with these things or you're not obsessed with these things. It's just like, depending on how you use it, but it's like,
True. Yeah, I
there's
was
like
gonna say, I
super
don't think,
fans.
right. I don't think I've ever been a super fan of anyone or anything.
Except for the
Like,
Beatles.
Well, yeah, that would be the exception, wouldn't it? I would say I was a Beatles super fan. But other than that, I don't know, like superheroes people, they do the whole cosplay, they dress up in the costumes and stuff. And I'm not knocking that at all. I've never been that big of a fan to do that.
Right.
Well, unless you count my Halloween costume one year, which I thought was genius and brilliant, but probably millions of people have done this Halloween costume. I was Waldo. Or what's he called? He's called something else in Great Britain. Wally?
No.
I think he's called Wally. Walt. He is. I'm Googling it right now. We're completely, by the way, we've completely deserted the topic of our podcast, of our show tonight, life lessons, and now we're just talking about super fandom.
We had a feeling this was going to happen.
Waldo in Britain. Waldo is Wally. But here in the UK, this is according to mentalfloss.com, Waldo is Wally. And shockingly enough, Waldo was actually Wally first, and he's British Wally. Oh, he's British, period. Wally was the brainchild of Martin Handford, an illustrator born in the Greater London neighborhood of Hampstead. Wow. My mind exploded. I can't believe Waldo is British.
Why did we have to change his name?
I don't know. It would be interesting to trace the differences some of them are obvious, like, actually, maybe not. I was going to say boot of the car, trunk of the car, except I don't know why they call it a boot. I think we call it a trunk because you used to strap a trunk on the back of your car before it actually came with a compartment. So it's called a trunk. That's my understanding. Why they call it a boot, I don't know. Because they put boots back there? Because they stand there with boot? I don't know.
Heather, interesting fact, talking about cars in the UK. Do you know why they drive on the right side of the road?
Don't we drive on the right side of the road and they drive on the left side of the road?
Sorry, that's what I meant. The left side. I'm sorry. Why they drive on the left? Because back in the day, when they had knights, they would ride down the left side of the road in case they encountered an enemy. They would have their right hand free to attack with their sword.
Huh. I'm not sure that's the reason.
Heather, it's the reason. Because there's another reason why I watched this, Heather. It was on YouTube. It has to be true.
Okay.
It's one of those weird history things where it's, you know what I mean? Like, it's like you wouldn't expect that being the reason, but that's the reason. It's just like how it happened. And then for us being on the right side of the road is for an entirely different reason. And it had something to do with wagons and being able to pass easier pedestrians or other wagons or whatever, which is why
when the cars first. Sorry.
Yeah.
I was going to say, when the cars first started coming out, there were still wagons, so they had to drive, not hit into wagons. Fun story. Apparently, I'm gonna butcher this on details and facts, but it's essentially it was on one of these, like, you watch these videos, weird coincidences that have happened, right? I'm gonna say that this happened in Ohio. That's probably wrong, but apparently at one point there were only 2 vehicle, automobile owners in all of the state of Ohio back in the day. And they managed to crash into each other in their cars.
Wow.
That's apparently a true story. Did I remember where I heard that? No. Did I remember the correct state? Probably not. But I feel like this is probably a true story.
Well, even if it was only in the state of, let's roll with Ohio, they probably lived in the same city, which already narrows that down, the amount of area that they could be in and or occupy at the same time. And they were both probably rich, so it narrows down even more to a specific, location of said city where they could crash into each other. That's why.
Okay. Well, I don't remember any of those details or if those details were covered, but that's a lot of assumptions you're making there. I like to think that one was from the north of Ohio and one was from the south of Ohio. That's how I picture it in my head. And they were going on. One guy was going to visit his family down south and one guy was going to visit his friend up north. And they just collided on a dirt road somewhere in the middle of Ohio.
It's definitely how it must have happened.
I feel like it had to have been at night because probably the cars didn't have headlights yet. Right? Because how would you not see? How can you not see when there's like no other traffic? Like, I mean, I just wish, if that is a true story, I wish I knew how that could even happen.
I'm sure they had lanterns of something. They had to have had headlights,
No, they have to have some sorts of light. That's true. But I think cars originally did not have headlights. Maybe they did. Okay.
They
original Model T Ford. I'm Googling it. Original Model T Ford. It had headlights. I lied. Okay, so that could, maybe the headlights burnt out suddenly on one of them. And he's like, I can make it anyway. And then crashed into the other car whose headlights also happened to burn out. I got this all worked out. This is how it happened.
You're making just as many or more assumptions than I just made. And mine feels a little bit more logically sound than yours. Just throwing that out there.
Okay, I think you might be right. Well, we're 7 minutes beyond the 45 minutes we're going to do. I think this is a great point to close on. Hopefully next week, because we're going to try to do this every week, somebody will listen. But I'm actually kind of glad nobody listened because I was so ridden with anxiety going into this. I was like, my palms were starting to sweat and my heart was starting to beat hard. And then when it was like 0 listeners, I was like, oh, I can just relax and talk. So it kind of, it was kind of good. I like how that happened.
Well, there you go.
All righty.
I do want to end this off with some free advice, like we normally do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my free advice is make sure your headlights are on when you drive at night so you don't crash into other cars. You're welcome.
That's common sense advice. There you go. Some people need it.
Okay,
we will talk to you. Very true. Until next time.
Until next time.
I'm going to end live. Chowsers.